Good morning. I'm Shawna Christenson, co-founder of the Aerospace and Innovation Academy and a proud teacher for over 20 years in South Florida. Today, I'm joined with my student and colleague, Deanie Vaitsos, and we are going to share with you the importance of developing a science identity early on, the idea of engaging the future scientists in the classrooms of today with the goal of filling our pipeline. So let's talk a little bit about what that pipeline is. Essentially, when we talk about the pipeline, we're referring to, the STEM careers, the idea that we have this what's called a graying of the workforce, right? And with all these people retiring from these very good paying jobs, ideally a pipeline would be filled with really exciting students coming out the other end to fill those jobs. But that's not what's happening. And in part it's because here in our state and certainly around the United States, we tend to look at the idea of understanding or choosing a career later on, as late as say even high school and university. But we know that kids are naturally innate learners. They're little scientists in the making. Kids in kindergarten will ask why and how, and they are constantly asking because they want to know what makes the world tick and how it works. So today we're going to look at this through the lens a little bit of the social cognitive career theory, the idea that when you identify with a skill set, it's because you identify with people who look like you, who are in that career field. We'll also be talking a little bit about Erickson's stages of competency. We as teachers, we know that from a pedagogical aspect, kids as young as ages 5, 6, and 7 really start to identify with who they are and what they're good at. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of how we can help that out, as well as the idea of using experiential learning. STEM education kind of gets this phrase that we bandy about, we overuse it, and essentially we think that we're doing real STEM education if we give a kid an iPad or they join the first robotics team. But it's so much more than that. It's really more about providing real hands-on experiences, both in and outside of the classroom, that will change that face of STEM education for Florida particularly. We also believe strongly in a blue sky learning philosophy, which suggests that you can achieve ridiculous goals if you only break them down into achievable pieces. Deanie will tell you a little bit later about how middle school students did something as big as cube satellite launching, which is something that you normally would see at a university level. So it can be done with students, and that's why we think starting younger is very important. Now, that science identity really starts young, as we said. And so this would be great if all of our homes started off the same way, because after all, our home really is our first school. And our parents, of course, are our first teachers. So imagine you have parents who are both highly educated. One is a doctor, one is a scientist. And right away, you assume that those are possibilities for you. Or maybe you have a home that's rich in text environments, or you have games that bring to you worlds that you didn't know that otherwise existed. But because you're learning about them, you're able to see these as possibilities for you in the future. But that's not the house life or the home life for every student. And in fact, that's particularly not the case for students who are in the underrepresented populations, people of color, women of color for sure, and those who come from more impoverished families. And that's why it's really important that we as teachers who work with this young age group are able to perhaps provide those opportunities for them to see themselves in different career fields. It's only when students identify, to use the idea of Erickson again, when they see people who look like them doing those job fields, that those children are able to imagine that it's a possibility for them. So we have to take that into consideration when we talk about changing STEM education. It's not just in the curriculum that we have to change. It really is a paradigm shift as far as how we approach education in our classrooms. We have to get outside of those four walls and bring our community in. And so we see that not only by working with our students and communities, but by collaborating with other teachers as well. Now, I mentioned that this subgroup, in particular women, and I know that this is an older chart that we've seen before, but frankly, the numbers really haven't changed a lot. When we talk about people entering that pipeline, women tend to enter the fields of STEM at a much lower rate than men. While it's been, kind of catching up somewhat, we find that women are tending to enter the life sciences as opposed to the harder sciences, math, engineering, and even when they do, the pay is still not the same. right? And so that's even more staggering when we talk about people of color. Again, an older chart that unfortunately hasn't really changed much, where you can see that the largest percentage remains the white male. And of course, these are the ones who are tending to retire now as well with that graying of the workforce. So we have to do more to encourage people of color to embrace or to identify themselves in this career field. As you can see, the numbers reduce when you see women there in general, but when you get down to Black men and women and Hispanic men and women, they are underrepresented in this pie chart. And if this is what your classroom looks like, then you have all the opportunity to really make a difference in their lives. We see an issue also with socioeconomics and in general, the idea of retention into these career fields, because if a student already is not identifying in that career field, the chances of them pursuing a career are of course reduced. But more importantly, from those socioeconomic factors, we see that these are high paying jobs. And so if a student of one of those underrepresented populations is encouraged and is enabled to go into this career field, it can change their lives, but not only their lives, the lives of their family to come. Of course, this could change generational poverty, because otherwise it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy when a child looks around them and says, this is just my experience. My parents didn't have a college degree. I don't have a college degree. I don't see anyone who looks like me with that. So again, we as teachers can really change that in order to kind of change that the future for those students as well. And now Deanie is going to share with you a little bit about how the 21st century skill set with the idea of experiential learning can really help to change our STEM curriculum of the future.
Thank you, Ms. Christenson. The 21st century skills are a set of skills that will be necessary for students and workers in the future. They were developed by the National Education Association in 2002 as a response to the students' declining performance in STEM subjects. Of them, the most important are the 4 C's, which are critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. One way we can implement the 21st century skills and change our curriculum is through project-based learning. Project-based learning is a teaching method that gets students interested in different topics. It's really useful as students will now learn how to problem solve not theoretically but in the real world, which engages students' interests and makes them want to learn more about a subject. A great example of project-based learning are CubeSats in education. CubeSats are small 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter satellites that carry out experiments in space. Experiments have wide ranges, from a lens that looks down on Earth to gather data to a live bacterial experiment. Although CubeSats may seem like a university level project, our middle school CubeSat team has been involved with CubeSats for a number of years now, and we've even managed to successfully launch one of our CubeSats, the YSat-1. What is important here is that we start earlier rather than later to really develop a student's interest in STEM. Although CubeSats are not the only way to increase students' participation in STEM, one great way is through community STEM functions, such as STEAM Carts or STEM Fest, in which older students mentored younger students through fun science experiments to get them interested in STEM. Another example of this is the Science Palooza at our school, in which younger students were encouraged to do science experiments and present them to their parents, teachers, fellow students, and judges as if it was a real science fair. This event was a huge success, as having the students put on the lab coats, do the experiments, and then present the results made them feel as if they were actually scientists, which motivated them to do better in their science classes and get interested in the STEM pipeline. Teams of our students have also worked together to author coloring and activity books and picture books for younger students. They've also organized a school-wide launch party at the launch of our YSat-1 satellite. And these outreach activities are really working, as for example, our CubeSat team used to be called the Wolverine CubeSat Development Team, and it consisted of a few middle school students. Now, the Wolfpack CubeSat Development Team has a number of students ranging from grades 3 to 12, and they're all interested and motivated in our activities. Our members are encouraged to participate in school-wide science fairs and participate in international and domestic conferences such as this flag conference. Our students have also participated in international space settlement design competitions. We have been met with success and enthusiasm from students everywhere. And now that we've told you about activities to engage students in STEM, here's Miss C to tell you more about how teachers can implement these activities.
Thanks, Deanie. Again, it really is about a paradigm shift, making sure that we're not just using our educational kind of curriculum to kind of guide what has to be done in a classroom. Instead, it requires us to have relevant professional development, which sometimes, let's face it, as teachers can be lacking. I was very excited to be able to work with the Florida Space Grant Consortium, who offered a stipend where we were able to work with teachers from around South Florida who were interested in kind of changing up that paradigm shift, if you will, for their classroom. In addition to attending our camp, which stood for equipping students and teachers in engineering and aerospace modalities, the teachers also, in addition to receiving the stipend, received information about some organizations, which we have found, particularly at the Aerospace and Innovation Academy, to be quite helpful in bringing the community into our classroom and beyond. For example, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, or the AIAA, where I and my colleague are actually not only members, but we're able to be officers, which enables us access to engineers right here in our own community. Not only have these engineers come into our classrooms to talk with students, who look like them, but also they've been able to mentor students when they're presenting their CubeSat proposals as well. The Space Foundation Teacher Liaison Program has been incredibly inspirational and helpful as you're working with teachers from around the world, not just the United States. In fact, most recently, we were able to work with a group in India who's looking to revamp their own STEM educational system. And so by being able to share with people in networking, it makes us those, again, better teachers who can come back and provide these opportunities for their students. So we really have to look at what we consider professional development and see how we can change that as teachers ourselves. It starts by collaborating and bringing the community in, but collaborating not only with people in your own school building, outside as well. And so as Deanie and I come to a conclusion, we really hope that you will consider collaborating with us at the Aerospace and Innovation Academy. We are looking not only to help other students build cube satellites, but to help engage teachers who are like-minded in trying to change that shape of STEM education. We really hope that these kinds of activities will provide the opportunities for STEM identity for your students. And if you would like more information about how you can do that, we hope that you'll reach out to us. Our emails are here on the screen for you. We really appreciate you allowing us to attend even virtually today. And so again, please reach out so that we can work with you and your students soon. Thank you.